Hello, everyone. Monday night.
Hey, what's going on? It's Sketchy Live Monday. What? Can you believe it? I can't believe it. You made it to the right place. It's Monday night. Sketchy Live in the house. We didn't even have to introduce him.
We got Little Daddy Roth.
We can't even look at him.
We're going to get into some cool stuff. We will be right back.
It's Sketchy Live, everybody. It's Sketchy Live Monday in the house. It's Johnny Zloppy here, artist, pseudo fabricator. That's Eddie B, and with us, the amazing, the legend, Little Daddy Roth in the house.
I don't know about legend, brother.
What are you talking about? You're a legend. You're the living.
Only
living.
big because I've been around longer than you, anyway.
Well, we'll get into all of why you're the legend, but we're so excited that you're here. Thanks for coming.
Hey, I was just at Don Garlett's and I thought, well, why not stop by here?
This is amazing.
I drove all the way through the villages to get to your place.
I'm surprised they let you out in the golf car.
Hey, you know what? The villages is a nice place, man.
Are you moving in?
Yeah. I'm gonna start doing.
Have you seen the brochure?
Cars.
It's really good. We've got all the ladies and a Winn-Dixie.
Yeah. Well, but the alligators kind of.
Yeah. Well, what are you gonna do? It's all good. Hey, it's Sketchy Live Monday. Tonight it's Sketchy Live the podcast. We're gonna hang out here with Little Daddy Roth, and we're gonna ask a bunch of questions. We're hoping for your input. And before we do that, of course, as always, Eddie B is gonna give us the intro as far as who's on. Let us know who's here. We're kind of sharing mics, so it's going to be a little difficult on this side, but we wanted to make sure that Little Daddy Roth had perfect sound, audio. He's got his gear on. We got the flake in the house. It's all going on. So here is Eddie B to introduce who is on the broadcast.
Thank you, Johnny. All righty. Rip it out of your hands. So we do have Lizzie Daughtry joining us tonight, Paul Marziani. We've got James Olchin from Lincoln, Nebraska, home of Speedway Motors. Love saying that. Chongo NorCal,
Nice.
one of your
faves. In the house. Chongo in the house.
And we've got Gavin Little from Washington State. We've got Bjorn Dahl. Welcome, sir. We got to meet him when we were up in Georgia. Awesome. Frank Pupello, Little Daddy on Sketchy Live. What? Awesome. Yep. Super excited. Ron Sedlak, our buddy up in Michigan. Oh, man, there goes the ratings, he said.
Hey, the wheel stand king. Yeah, Johnny, you.
We've got Wiley Vincent from a rainy San Jose, California. Chongo NorCal said Roth Metal Flake. Yes, sir. That we're going to hear a little bit more about that in a little bit.
A lot.
Philip Pearson. Wow. Holy cow. It's so rad. We've got Randy Keats. Good evening from Michigan. Ian Russell is joining us.
Right. We better be nice tonight.
Full Custom Ian is joining us on YouTube.
Can you believe it?
Hi, guys. Jamie here. What's up, Dennis?
Oh, hey, Jamie. What's going on, girl?
Philip Pearson said, I live next to the villages on 15 acres. So he's familiar.
Perfect.
Terry Lund joining us, watching back in Michigan. Philip said, Little Daddy, we hear you, man, here in Florida. Mr. Dana Baldwin, howdy from Casa Grande, Arizona. I was
Your crew is hanging out
close to that area as well. Howard Pierpont, 69 and clear, Mineola, Texas, joining us tonight. Jim McMillan, hey guys, welcome Roth. Dale Renner, hey guys, Land Lakes checking in. We've got the McCoys from Kuyang Customs out here in Cajun country. The Chuki Hand is joining us. And then Ian says,
gang's
hi. So, okay. So those are just a few of you. Keep keep funneling in, and we will get to you.
Is there room?
Yep, we got Shaggy LeBlanc joining us.
Shaggy.
Our buddy.
LeBlanc. Shaggy LeBlanc. All right. All right. So you're gonna hit him with the heavy questions, right? No, we're so excited that you're here. I can't believe. Here's the thing that I can't believe about you being in my house. First of all, that it was how many years ago that I got to meet you on Full Custom Garage when you showed up, and I was like, "Who is this guy again?"
But you know what? Here's the deal, Johnny. I'd already seen all your stuff on Facebook
No
from
way.
before that.
No way.
Oh yeah, I knew who you were when I got there. The car culture thing is like like a really pretty tight community.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I knew who you were too.
Yeah.
But when Ian was like, I got this guy, he's coming down, he's going to bring some metal flake and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Right.
And then we hear the rumbling of the engine of one of your custom cars show up, completely all flaked out. And then we go around the corner, and of course, there's this big top hat, Roth metal flake flashing. And I was like, oh, I can't even believe right now I'm getting to meet you.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. So I just want you to know, I can't believe from there that you're like, I remember coming back home from the trip and telling Itty B, going, "You're not going to believe this. I got to meet Big Daddy Roth's kid, and it's Little Daddy Roth, and he came in, he looked at the car, and he was just, it was awesome. It was amazing. And then now, years later, here you are sitting in my house.
But
we just had Mexican food together.
Like I even talked to guys that I was in the Army with. They'll call the factory, "Hey, can I talk to Little Daddy?" And I told them if I was, in the service with them, give them my number. And they call me up and they go, "Man, you were famous." I was famous when I was like in the Army when I was 18, because I used to get letters from Big Daddy, and it'd have the Big Daddy logo on there. And they always called my name. My buddy Charlie Ray did. He'd call Little Daddy. So I was Little Daddy when I was like 17, 18 in the Army. By the time I was 20, I was, already out of the Army.
Right.
But that's where I first got the name Little Daddy. And I never thought of myself as famous just because, it was all about the Big Daddy thing when I was a kid. But, growing up, building all the cars, we had people at the shop that worked every day, like Robert Williams, Ed Newton.
Right.
Dave Mann worked from his house. He lived out back here in Independence, Missouri. And Daryl Zip would show up, Stanley Mouse, all these early people that I idolized as well, but they were Dad's friends,
Right.
I made Mickey Thompson shirts on Friday night, and on Saturday morning, we'd trade nitro to Mickey, at his shop in Long Beach on the way to Lions.
Crazy.
I sold t-shirts every weekend and decals at Lions Drag Strip for just quarter. And
so when did it happen so let's kind of go back, because again, you're talking about being 18, so let's go further back.
Oh yeah.
So when was it when you realized that your dad was who he was? I mean, or was there just times where you're like, "Yeah, it's my dad. He's builds stuff and he's into cars and he's got a lot of buddies that are
when I
into
didn't
cars."
think that everyone got a bicycle from Santa Claus that was lettered by their dad. Right. Right. It was about that time.
And all your friends are going, "Dude, can you believe who did that bike for you?" That's my dad.
Because when I was real young in kindergarten and stuff, they would get a mail order for a t-shirt, and they just pin up a t-shirt and airbrush everything. But as I got older, we started silk screening stuff. Like in 62 or 3, we started silk screening Wild Child, Mother's Worry, and Rat Fink, those first few screens, because Dad was going to car shows like Autorama in 1965, with Stanley Mouse was the other guy airbrushing shirts there, and they couldn't airbrush shirts fast enough. There was like $1.98 for an airbrush shirt,
Wow.
So, but Dad figured out, oh man, if I screen them, but the one thing growing up that I think that what people don't realize is that Dad hired all the right people to do the right work.
I would agree with you.
Dad always said he was a great producer. And so people will look at the artwork or this, and I got a guy that draws just like Ed Newton, but they're looking a lot at Newt's artwork. And where my dad's art came out was at night when the employees clocked out. It was me and my brothers. I had 5. There was 5 boys: Howard, Dennis, Charlie, George, and Daryl. And we'd go into the back, and that's when we built the cars. And that's when the magic really came out, because right after the Outlaw came out, that was 59. So I didn't start working at the shop until 62. I was mixing straight plaster for the beatnik.
And how old were you then?
7.
Damn.
Yeah, and spray painting. I still airbrushing like spiders on shop rags and stuff.
Right.
By the time I was sanding the seats for the Mysterion. We made like 2 seats for the Mysterion. A lot of people didn't know that, but since the differentials were in the way, the bell housings, we just put 1 seat in the center. My cans are kind of falling off. Anyway, so we made 2 seats for that, and the other one, Dad upholstered and brought it to the house, made plywood legs for it and everything. So, that's one way I could tell, the Mysterion, if the real Mysterion has the seat in it, I sanded when I was a kid.
You're like, that's my blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Exactly. And so it developed from there. The early cars we built out of plaster, totally 20-minute plaster, like kind of mocked it up with sticks, and then just went to it with plaster, where you really didn't get a lot of time to form stuff. So they were all ground. So a lot of pictures you'll see of Dad or Dirty Doug full of white powder is the plaster. And then we just put fiberglass over that. So at one point, the beatnik Bandit got so heavy, but that Dad just got under there and welded some angle iron on there to keep it from going down any farther. So, on the original beatnik Bandit, the front fenders go kind of high,
right,
because it was sinking down. And then we took the body off and put it on. It was like, hey, that's cool. Look.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the fenders.
Look at this cool design trick I pulled.
Right. But as time went on, and I think it was about when we started doing the Orbitron, is when you started putting a different medias inside the plaster, and we finally landed on the vermiculite, so you could use that and use a Sureform.
Yeah, because your dad was the early on stages of learning how to manipulate fiberglass, other than for just surfboards or skateboards and stuff like that. They weren't going to be used for, right?
So I look back, I go, I couldn't go to the beach or do any of the fun stuff, go to the park with Hicks and all that stuff. Sometimes we snuck away, right, Hicks? But
So you were like 7 then when you realized your dad's kind of a big deal in this culture?
Yeah, because Ravel treated my dad really good. You know what I mean? See, because like my mom signed and Dad signed a contract with Ravel in 60, and it was supposed to run until 75. But they shot it out of the window in like 65, I think, when Dad was listed as in Life magazine as the supply sergeant to the Hells Angels. That kind of put the. But the whole deal before that was we had to supply a car a year. Well, Dad didn't hire no one to build cars. We did it. But we always understood that the Dad always told us the cars are just the signs for people to come to the booth and buy a T-shirt. Like when the road agent's sitting out there, people come over and look at the road agent, get a shirt, buy something. So that was what we did, like 70 hours a week, go to school and build cars at night. And during the day after school, we'd have to like silk screen shirts and fold shirts. And
so in that time, I mean, being that, Big Daddy was like, I would almost say that, like, it seemed of the culture, the first guy to really say, hey, listen, apparel is where the money's at. Right.
Yeah. I'm pretty,
I mean, obviously he was, like you said, he was building the cars to sell the T-shirts.
Yeah.
No, I don't think anybody else was thinking that way. They were thinking, I'll build the car because the car is going to get me more business to build more cars. And your dad was like, yeah, but apparel, I could sell, 100 shirts.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Here's the weird thing is that Dad was stationed at the same place Jamie Roussel was stationed at Fort Shaw or Shaw Air Force Base.
Okay.
And they sent him to Africa, and Big Daddy got malaria in Africa. And then so they shipped him back to South Carolina, and my mom goes, Big Daddy was never the same after that. And they had just only been married like 2 years, but they'd made it through high school and everything together. So maybe something to happen.
It was the malaria that did it.
Like, because then Dad just got that. He saw this car called the Shot Off Special. It was a car for Bonneville. And he thought, well, I can just build a car and, make it look like the Outlaw. And some 16-year-old kid saw it, Jimmy Keeler from Ravel, and talked the people that owned Ravel into making a model of it, and it sold 1 million the first year.
So as soon as the car went to being a model, that was like the rocket ship for
I realized like I was in second grade, and like we were getting a pool at our old dump house, like what I mean?
We made it.
Yeah, right.
Keep building models, Dad.
Yeah, hit me and Hicks played in that pool, like, and then when we started working at 7, it was pool time's over. we got a house with all garages, the old Pro, the Beatnik Bandit, the Road Agent, all the cars were stacked at our house.
So I got to ask you, here you are in the garage with Dad building these cars. Did you ever do the models?
Very rarely, because like we had to
Yeah,
work all the
time.
time. See, because they couldn't even put out models fast enough.
Yeah.
My mom and dad bought this car from Johnston. I can't remember his first name, but anyway, it was the Tweety Pie. It was on Deuce rails.
Right. Yeah. Mhm.
And they fixed it up and put some, carburetors on it and painted it. And actually, it was named the Tweety Pie, I think, before Dad got it. And they threw that in the mix because we didn't have the Beatnik Bandit done fast enough because it was just so hard to build a car. So we had to make a faster way to do it. And then we built the Road Agent, or the Rotars between there, but they didn't want to make a model of that. So we're building the Road Agent. And the Road Agent is so symmetrically straight. And
in comparison to,
side, it was like, oh, wait a minute. This is just taking so much time. So then immediately, it's Mysterion, Surfite, and Orbitron. 4 cars or 3 cars that are asymmetrical. You can just go around and just let go on them.
Which is is where it feels like, for the culture itself is where that's when it goes off, because suddenly, guys who were like, hey, listen, I'm not a designer guy, but I got some cool ideas. They didn't have to be so concerned with, well, that headlight doesn't match that headlight.
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, it doesn't on purpose.
Yeah.
I got a 57 here, and it's going to be offset, and it's totally asymmetrical.
Right.
But it looks like nothing else on the road.
Yeah.
So your dad was a genius.
Yeah, but see, then I think that when the Tweety Pie came out, it probably sold like 2 million copies.
Because it was pretty straightforward
Ford,
too.
It was a Ford. I mean, that was the first car Mom and Dad got rid of too after that, because they didn't want any really cars that were in the lineup that was a Ford. They were all our cars. And that's when I was a kid. I used to ask Dad, well, George Barris is the king of customizers. He goes, yeah, he is. He customizes cars. We build them from scratch. There's a different
there's
deal.
a huge difference.
Yeah. So,
sure.
and I think the wildness of that, and Dad wanted to create a new thing every time, like, hey, it didn't have to be a blown Oldsmobile in the Beatnik Bandit. The Road Agent is a Corvair. You know what I mean? And that's what's so wild about Ian, the way he builds cars now, too. Like, you guys have been at shows when people come up and go, hey, I've seen you on Ian's show. They say that more than any other show I've ever been on, Counts or Big Easy or, Speed is New Black. They don't, because Ian's a forward-thinking guy and just puts strings out there. That's very Big Daddy-ish.
Yes.
We do. We didn't even have PVC back in the day. We'd take 1x and just cut notches in it and bend it and like, oh yeah, that's the line I want there. Okay, staple it. You know what I mean?
And there's an element of risk taking too. I mean, when I watched him do it, he's like, well, let's just try this. Like, he's not afraid to just try something new. And he wasn't afraid to just grab that dog bowl and use it as part of the car. It's just whatever's around you. And it makes it more relatable for people. Not everybody has all the tools necessary to do, this great job, but he's showing people you can use what you've got.
Right.
And that's important.
Yeah. And he can make cars look like our cars with just using metal. And like, we could have never done that without doing it in fiberglass. You know what I mean, Johnny? And just like taking years to finish it and stuff. And Ian just takes like the dish from an old satellite and
right.
All
and your dad was I at least from what I can see of those older customs, he was like, everything doesn't have to have a V8 in it. I'm going to throw some VW stuff in it because you can get more crazy with the body and do more crazy design stuff that you're not limited to the drive shaft going through the center. You can get it.
And the Surfite was a Mini Cooper, and just all that stuff.
And that, what a crazy machine that is.
And the story behind the Orbitron having that 283 and Power Glide in it is that in 1965, my dad had a 55 Chevy, and Dick Cook, this guy from down the street, and Fritz Voigt, who was Mickey Thompson's crew chief for years, he went to high school with Dad. And actually, my grandparents and Fritz Voigt's grandparents used to go to Germany on a boat back in the 60s.
Oh, nice.
And,
Okay.
it's weird to think back.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
All
like
the
that.
connections that are.
Yeah. intertwined of racing and, you know, Dean Moon growing up around there and Dad hanging out with Dean Moon, going over his house when I was a little kid, and there was moon eyes in the bottom. But I forgot my train of thought on that. Do you remember?
Okay, you were talking about how with the drivetrains and your dad's the Chevy motor.
Oh yeah. So later on, I'd ask Dad, you know, I go, Dad, you know, Tom Wolfe, when he came out there, wrote this book. I rode in Big Daddy's drag car, you know, and all this. And it wasn't even a drag car; it was a tow car. But I asked Dad, I go, because I took that 283 and Power Glide out of it because it was only 2 speeds. I couldn't, you know, drag the road agent around with it at 2 speeds down, you know, Route 66. So he put a 390 in it, you know, out of a brand new 65 Thunderbird, right, you know, and the C6 or C3 transmission. I mean, the thing did haul ass, right? And so when Dad's looking back out, you know, in that cover of Juxtaposed magazine on Bob's magazine, yeah, that was a fast car. When it didn't have a trailer on it, it was just like, you know, but everyone was so mystified when you opened the hood of his 55 Chevy, you know, and there was a blue motor on there. It said Thunderbird on the valve covers.
I think your dad liked making people go, what did,
yeah, it's a tow car. And
right.
Yeah. And that engine ended up in the Orbitron. And then he didn't like the Orbitron, so he sold it to like Starboard for like $800. And then it ended up at some circus and, you know, right, Mexico, and then Galpin found it. Yeah.
And then they found it, redid it.
Yeah.
And it looks phenomenal now.
Yeah.
So it's cool that it's back. And there's, I think Galpin probably one of the biggest owners of your dad's old customs. I mean,
yeah, him and Teddy, you know, that owns the Motorcycle Museum in New York. He's got a lot of the trikes and the motorcycles and a lot of, well, even Von Dutch's stuff and Steve McQueen's stuff. So.
And how, so did you get to, I mean, obviously you were talking about all these guys that were kind of in and out of your dad's garage.
Yeah.
So Von Dutch was there quite a bit, right? With your dad. Did you get to talk to him or meet him at all? Or?
Oh yeah. Like when we were kids, Dutch lived out in Calabasas, which was very rural back in the day. You know, 65, it was a dirt road Dutch lived on. And now I think there's a BMW dealer there and the Kardashians live in Calabasas.
Right. Yeah,
Justin Bieber,
that's right. Yes.
But back in the day, you know, we'd go out there and Von Dutch had a pool. And so it was like, hey, get your trunks and jump in the hearse. We're going to Von Dutch's house. You know what I mean? And it was
road trip.
Exactly. It was our only day off. But Mom and Dad would go up there like 2 or 3 times a year, maybe. And during the holidays and buy everything Dutch had, because Dad told Dutch, you know, if you're not working on nothing, make a painting, make a bike, whatever you do, I will buy it. You'll see them all in the old Chopper magazines, the Volkswagen 2-wheeler, the American Pickers Found, and the little Von Dutch mini bike. He gave that to the Maywood cops. He never let us ride it. I was one of the payoffs to the cops. For starting the yellow thing on Slauson, you know.
Yeah, and the Yellow Fangs at Don Garles's museum, which you were just at, right?
Yeah, that's where I was just coming from. And to see Don or guys like Gene Winfield or any of those old guys, you know, I respect them totally. I mean, old guys to me, like 10 years older than me, Robert Williams, you know, Bob.
Of course.
Bob, when I was a kid, you know, like those guys I just look up to. They're iconic, you know. And, you know, it's crazy. Bob was 21 when he came to work for my dad, and I was 10.
Wow.
And they were just starting Zap Comics, and like at night they'd let Dad let them, you know, just stay and do, and they'd be doing Zap Comics, you know, at night, and just.
So like you said, as in those seems like a lot of the extra creative stuff that was going on was always at nighttime in the studio.
Yeah, because you know. Peterson was getting down on my dad, the guy that owned Hot Rod Magazine, about Choppers Magazine, you know?
Oh, right. That's right.
Yeah. And like, and I saw Choppers Magazine was so just nothing compared to Zap's comics, you know, like Wonder Warthog, Mr. Natural, that, you know, all that stuff. Coochie Cootie, Bob's Coochie Cootie. Did you ever watch his documentary?
No, I haven't got, I've started it multiple times and I'm like, I don't want to miss anything. And then I get interrupted. So there's a lot of good stuff. There's the beginnings of the culture as well. Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I used to always tell Dad, well, I can't paint, you know, motorcycles like Dave, and I can't, you know, make paintings like Bob, and I can't do black and white like, you know, Newt, or I can't airbrush like Franco. And he goes, you know what, everyone's got their own like vision of art, you know what I mean? And that's why I don't have any of my art hanging up my house. I got all everyone else's. I sell mine.
I've seen your
and
stuff.
then-
Your stuff looks great. Okay.
Okay, so we have a question. So let's talk about Roth metal flake for a second, because we've got Frank Pupello asking, Little Daddy, can we get small amounts of your flake for our model cars? So what do you sell? Like, what's your smallest?
Yeah, you know,
Is it the container? Do we have the container out front? Can
oh,
you
you
see
know,
it?
I don't have them here, but I got
We have one.
I got some rattle cans with
Oh,
the smallest flake in it. But if you call 415 Mo Flake and talk to Vince, and that's anytime during Pacific time.
okay.
He's right there in the Bay Area,
There you go.
and he speaks English.
Oh, that's always a plus. And so I know we talked about this at dinner when we went to dinner, but tell everybody how you got started doing the flake. How did you develop Roth metal flake?
Oh, well, you know what? Here's the deal. Like, okay, the cars started coming back off the show circuit, say when I'm 10, 11 years old. Outlaw comes back, Beatnik Bandit comes back. They're chipped up and been fixed a few times. So Dad's just getting into metal flake heavy. Then we're starting to paint the Wishbone right out of the box. It's flake. Captain Pepe's right out of the box. It's flake. California Cruiser right out of the box. It's flake. So we put T-shirts on all the wheels on the, Beatnik Bandit and flake it, and green flake. And then we did the Outlaw and blue flake, peacock blue. And then we cleaned them up and put them in, Movie World right about after that. And Krager gave us all new Kragers for them. So we took off the wheels, put Kragers on everything for the museum. And then just about before I went in the Army, after Mom and Dad got divorced, like in 70, I'd say in 72, I went in the Army in 73. So in 71, Dad traded all the cars at Bruckers for a 71 Volkswagen. And I'm just like, well, I'm 16. I was like, Dad, you just traded away all the work we did all those years for all that stuff. He goes, you know what? He goes, anyone can own those cars, but they'll always be ours. And I never thought of it like that. You know what I mean? It was like, I was just thinking, damn, we were starting to build trikes by then. And Dad was going for the patent. We put in for the patent in 1968, and it was finally awarded in 1970. So we were starting, to get into the Volkswagen trike thing. And but he was right. Hera got the cars after that. He got them from Brucker. And then Hera kept, Hera hired my dad and my brother Howard to go up there and repaint the Beatnik Bandit and the Outlaw the way they were. And so when Hera died, his kids got some land downtown by Reno and called it the National Automobile Museum. That's where the original Beatnik Bandit and the yellow one that me and Dad made in the 90s and toured with at World of Wheels. They sit side by side up there.
Wow.
And then
yeah, you're right. I mean, when you even as I brought up Galpin, I mean, you think about the cars that are in there. I don't think to myself, oh, those are Galpin cars that of the Roth.
Right.
It's those are Big Daddy Roth's cars.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't think at all that they're
yeah.
anybody else's but his.
Right.
Even though they're in somebody else's total
someone else owns them.
collection.
Like, we were walking over at Moon Eyes, and Bob and Suzanne, I was talking, they go, hey Dennis, where the road agent's at? And I go, well, probably Bo owns it, and he goes, no, the president of Nike Shoes owns it.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I go, when that was in our garage, my mom used to put the bubble up on it, and we'd throw our dirty clothes in there. You know what I mean? Because that's what, what I mean?
Yeah.
And then Watson wanted to borrow it to put it in his showroom up in Santa Monica. So Dad goes, go ahead. And then Watson repaints it and does everything,
right.
Fixes it up again. Yeah. All those cars at one time were, like pretty much nothing. And then like right after Dad died, I think the first car that sold after he died was a road agent, and it was somewhere right around $250,000.
Wow.
And they call like, oh, your dad's car is sold for, $25,000. I told him, my dad's spinning in his grave like on a rotisserie, because that would never, he just would have never thought that had happened.
Yeah.
But
and now all of them are,
yeah,
they're worth so much money. But the way I look at it is all the time that you got to spend in sanding on them, and the memories of doing it all, which is I think what drives
when you're
to do what you're doing now, is why you do what you do now. Is
because I'm totally a car guy. You know what I mean? No matter what I do all my life, whether it's in the Army or work construction or anything, I was always, you know, a car guy at heart, like all of us.
Tuning into the broadcast is your sidekick from many, many years ago, Mr. Mike Hicks.
Yeah. I told you, don't take no questions from that guy.
It's not a question, it's a statement. He said, whatever you do, don't give him any chocolate cookies. He's been digging into the Halloween candy, Mike.
Yeah. He's like a gremlin. You already gave him chocolate.
I went through the bowl in the green room and some old guy's in there going like this on my hands. No almond joys, bro.
Oh my gosh. I can't get to all the comments, guys. I'm gonna try to, Philip Pearson said need some Roth gear. We've got Andy Yee joining us. Matthew Schleip from Grand Marais, Minnesota here. Big and Little Daddy Roth rock. So that's high five to you.
Yeah.
Diane Kennery. Hi, Johnny and Eddie B from Diane and Ray in Illinois. Good to see Little Daddy Roth. Matt Williams joining us. Hello, guys. And Little Daddy, you probably hear this a lot, but I'm a big fan of your dad's work.
Oh, thanks, man.
He probably does hear that a lot. Doug Dorr is on the broadcast tonight. Oh, shit. Haven't seen him in years. He
right,
said.
huh?
You remember Doug Dorr?
Oh, yeah. He's got the tiki lounge.
Yes. Only
Who doesn't
only
know?
a select few get back there. Johnny was lucky one time.
That's a good time there.
Yeah. Corey Siebert's joining us. So cool to meet him in Dubuque, Iowa this spring. Marvin Kramer. Hey, Dennis. Hey, Johnny and Eddie B. Let's see. Oh, Don Latham. And Don, I'm so glad you said this because we were so excited to have him here for this reason. He said, very cool. Love hearing his stories. There are a million stories. In fact, the first time we met you at Autorama, it was nothing but stories. And this guy eating it up because he had read about the history. He had known, your dad through
here's the thing about that, Eddie B. Dad was always in control of the few books that were written about him. The Life and Times of Rat Fink. It says it's written by Howie Pyro Newton, but no, he didn't write it. Dad did. Tony Thacker book. Dad was going to sue to Thacker and sent letters to see him. I'm going to sue you. And I kind of put Thacker and Dad together for that one. Dad wrote that. The one from Packnall, Dad wrote that. So after Dad turned Mormon, he wanted total control of what his past was like. Like he didn't want nothing about the Hells Angels in there, and that he was just like, lost until, he found a religion that, he loved and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I can dig that, but my, what I saw through my eyes as a child, and, what Dad writes about, like, very lightly in some spots is like a lot different, than.
Sure.
So, and I remember me and Bob and Suzanne, we were over in Berlin for a couple of weeks once for a car show, and we're walking around and we standing around talking. I go, Bob and Suzanne, I go, you both worked at the shop. You know how I was raised, and this and that. And she goes, you know what? You were raised just like your dad was raised, in a German militaristic, upbringing where nothing was good enough. And, but, through that, I realized that, like, growing up with Dad, I was learning right alongside my dad about what to do. And he had 5 boys, and I think back now, what if I'd have had 5 boys? What I'd have done, I might have made them line up and be all military too. And, just be under the thumb because, luckily,
it can get out of control real quick.
Yeah. Luckily, none of us ended up in jail. So,
No, you're all doing good.
Yeah. Well, one of us ain't. No.
No, but it's I mean, and holy cow, parenting in general is not easy to do. So having 5 boys.
Yeah. So my parenting was like mixing plaster and fiberglass and upside down German helmets. You know, how much MEK in this one, Dad? I want it to go off fast. I'm doing the side of the car. Okay. Yeah. Mix it up fast, cut, fiberglass this big. No, we're going to rip the glass and cut the mat. It was always doing something new to try to, see how we could build a body faster. Because the chassis was, not very hard. You could just like build a chassis pretty quick, but it was like building that body for the car. And it had a, you can always tell our cars, a lot of people go, oh, like, Big Daddy built that. It's too straight. That was built with plywood and has fiberglass over it. All of our stuff is swoopy and it's like you can tell
tons of curves, lots of different, all the crazy.
Yeah.
you just every one of the car has some sort of, and again it's where the whole I know Ian would probably say the same thing. The influences of your dad's stuff is everything looked like it was from outer space.
Yeah.
Nothing that was like cookie cutter in any way.
Right.
And it was always so like ahead of its time and timeless.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at all those designs now and you can set them by any new custom, and all of them are chasing that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And I don't think in a bad way, but I think all of them, I bet it'd be hard pressed to find probably a customizer or a designer, at least in the culture, who would go, I don't know about Ed Roth.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them.
Another thing is when I was a kid, TV was black and white. And I remember my mom getting us up real early one morning. And she said, get up, because like Dad's in New York with the Outlaw, right? And he's going to be on TV. And we got up early in the morning. We're watching, like CBS Today or whatever in the morning with Hugh. Hugh. And there's Dad. He had a suit on and stuff. Oh, yeah, it's the Outlaw. I got it here at the, Madison Square Garden or Javits Center, wherever they were. And I go, oh, okay, that's it. But it wasn't like for a while, until I realized. I think the models did it, because whenever we went to like a Revell function, man, Lou and Royal Glazer owned it, and man, they treated us like gold, because they were selling like literally millions of albums, millions of
the models,
kits. And then seeing 63 too, Dad is going, oh, well, like, maybe I'll hang out with the Hells Angels, because like the Stones and the Beatles were coming out on Capitol, and we had those 3 albums out on Capitol with Mr. Gasser and the Weirdos, which was really Glenn Campbell and Leon Russell. They were the band at Capitol.
Really?
Yeah. And then they just wrote those songs like Termites in My Woody and World's Fastest Ship Alive.
Yeah.
And they to a 4-beat and stuff. But my friend Bud, from Sublime, he told me when I was a kid, I used to listen to that. My uncle had them.
Right.
I was going, wow, dude. So anything, they just wanted the artwork, really. Hot Rod Hootenanny, Rods and Rat Finks, Sir Fink.
Yeah.
He was born in a crate in an old junkyard. Doink, doink.
I got to play some of that stuff for Eddie B. I don't think she's ever really heard any of the albums.
Yeah. Well, and
again,
Revell, they couldn't make cars fast enough, so they started making the monster, Mr. Gasser,
right? Yeah,
or Mother's Worry, or there's one with Dad and the Outlaw called Outlaw Fink, or some, Robin Hood. And
I've got a couple of the model kits
Angel
too.
Fink.
I'm sure the many, not the original designs or whatever, but yeah.
We're sharing a mic. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you pull up some of the cars so we can show everybody who maybe isn't familiar with them? Some of the ones he's been talking about: the Outlaw, the Mysterion, and Beatnik Bandit, and those. I'm going to share a couple little things here. We've got Dan Evans joining us. Welcome, Dan. Uncle Larry Crawford is joining us. Uncle Larry. He said, I guessed it right. Tell him we all said we love him. Can't wait to see him, from Uncle Larry. You guys are just all badass, he said. Doug Dorr said, Bob was the first guy to get me pinstriping with a pinstriping brush, not painting, but pinstriping. And look at where Doug's today, because he's a phenomenal pinstriper. We've got Bob Shaboom Frizz on the broadcast. Hey, Dennis, what's up? Hi, Eddie B and Johnny.
Shaboom.
See how he put my name before yours?
Love
you, Bob.
I still call him Fries, Bob Fries.
I know. And we were at Frankenmuth, and I'm like, I don't even know how to say it. How do you pronounce your last name? He's like, it's Frizz. I'm like, no one calls you that. He said, I know. I felt so bad. So I am like, it's Frizz now. I'm so into.
I can't even remember Ron's last name. I just have him as, I just put it Ron Wheel Stand Champion in my phone.
all my stuff on it's like Jeff with the red car.
Right.
Larry with the Model A.
Right. That's how it is in his car. Just a bunch of guys' names and what car they
buy
drive.
their car or what they do.
Dennis Menace Jackson said, Flake the world.
Yeah. Right on.
Frank wants to know, ask Little Daddy, what is the best clear coat to use over the flake on our model cars?
Well, I would say I like that Y2K spray max. because
you
it
go.
comes in a rattle can. And you know what? I've had a guy, I put it in my refrigerator after I use it. I don't use it all.
Really?
Yeah. So I put it in my refrigerator for like a couple of weeks. But my next door neighbor, Manny, goes, well, I'm just going to freeze it. He put it in his freezer for like 3 months. And then he got it out and put it in the sun and just started shaking it. And it came back to life. He used it and it worked.
We would have 3 more refrigerators out in the
Yeah,
garage.
like-
Honestly, we have that
because
many
that's a
rattle
lot of
cans
clear,
out
you
there.
know, but it's got that real nice head on it that puts the clear on and it's put on thick, you know, 2-part.
Well, there you go, Frank, from the expert over here. So we've got Geo Hot Rod Russ joining us from New Orleans. Jane Newby is joining us. Jim Pollan from Hobo's Hot Rod Garage.
Who that from?
Custom Bead Rolling in Horseheads, New York. Hey, little daddy. Jim's got some great stuff coming out of his shop, man. I'll tell you what. Marvin Kramer, I got to go to lunch with Dennis, Charlie, and their mother. She had so many wonderful stories. I sat there for 2.5 hours listening. Dove Creek, Colorado. He's tuning in from Marvin Kramer. Let's see. Full custom. Ian said, Jamie hasn't either. I'm not sure what he was referring to because that was a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe hasn't seen the movies. Maybe that's what he was talking
right.
about.
Records, maybe.
Oh,
All right.
Derek Johnson said, can't imagine a car guy not knowing Ed Roth's cars for sure. Do you have some of the cars up? Oh, it's not working. Okay. Frank said, thanks for the awesome info. Flake on.
Yeah. And going back to the metal flake part. So you were right out of so your dad started you were back to painting. This is where we went back to the metal flake stuff. You guys were repainting cars as they were coming back from being. So where did you start doing it on your own?
Oh,
where Little Daddy Roth's metal flake. That's when you started.
That's when,
because I mean,
right about just before Dad died in 2001, he had got rat fink back from my mom. He was trying to sell it to Moon Eyes, but that didn't work out, and because he didn't own it, so he went to federal court and got it from my mom. And so when he died, he left it to a girl that, you know, from his church that he was just, you know, was his last wife. When my dad, you know, when my dad died, he had to have several wives.
Right.
So she owned it. And I go, well, you know what? We'll just go back to what we do, what Dad had always taught us to do, you know, upward and onward, you know. So it was like around in 2000, you know, in the 2000s, right after Dad died, I built a car called the Maxterion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I found out, you know, like, you know, it was like a thing, you know, it was on all the things from SEMA, and it was on the MSN homepage one day, and everyone's telling me, hey, you know, you're famous and all this. And I go, what?
Suddenly Little Daddy Roth, everyone's going,
Overnight
hey man, do you know who you are?
Overnight sensation, right? You know what I mean? Oh, I've been building cars since I was 7.
Right.
But
is this your first car?
Yeah,
Like,
oh my God. And they even called it a tribute to Dad. And
okay.
And that's fine but I was hiding the parts to build Maxterion from my dad because he didn't want me building the car while he was alive.
Right.
So, but I came out with it and I go, oh, well, the paint job that Uncle Bob did was just so crazy that I go, okay, Steve, you know, me and my partner got together, we're going like, you know, it's time to set up the metal flake deal. And so we had a deal going. We had a parent company, and, you know, finally, you know, but this has been like, 21 years now. We've had the metal flake factory. So since then I built the other one, the Streetnik Bandit, and flaked it totally. And then I built a little Beatnik Bandit. I'm getting to that age where Dad was, where just before we built the Yellow Bandit, that was like 93 or 4. It was right after the 92 riots. I moved up to Manti because Dad had, you know, lost another wife and hadn't gotten another one yet. So I went up there and we built the yellow Beatnik Bandit. But I had already built my long V8 trike, you know, and that thing was just a monster. And I couldn't stay in California with it anymore because they told me they don't want to see it on the streets. But in Upton, Utah, you could drive a rear engine dragster with one wheel on the front. They didn't care.
California's like, no.
Yeah. It was like,
time to go.
Dad's neighbors had like chickens and farms, and, you know, there's a lot of polygamists up there. And so the cops aren't, you know, they ain't worried about someone with a V8 trike and stuff. So I got to drive around there. I went up to Ephraim Airport and would race it up and down the track because no one was at the airport. It was, you know, it was great fun. But after being with Dad for a while, I took off, and then in 2002, right after Dad died, is when I started the metal flake factory, and started, getting into that.
And was the push? I mean, obviously, your dad passing, but was that where you're like, okay, it's
I got
one of us has got to do this.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna be the guy that continues the legacy of metal flake. And
because I'd already built the car, and I was getting so many calls like, hey, you're gonna build another car, you're gonna do this, and we come on the shows and TV shows and what have you. So which, after a while, then I was too old. I can't, be going on TV shows and making content all the time, man. You're going to watch content of me sitting around watching John Wayne movies. You know what I mean?
Why not?
But, because I like to build stuff that's small now, like the candy machine or, flake a surfboard out or something. Because Dad told me once, he goes, look, we don't have to bring a whole car. We can just make this wagon or this wheelbarrow, and people will come to see it. And sure enough, he was right again. You know what I mean? People come over just to see the weird stuff you have. That's why I made that candy machine into like just a Roth plate.
These are the stories that you shared with me. Like one of the things you shared with me at Frankenmuth was you told me the story of your dad talking about the cellophane wrappers on T-shirts. And how that was the way to sell T-shirts. And you were like, what are you talking about? Why are we gonna? You were spending hours putting T-shirts in these shiny bags and going, this is stupid.
And they always fell down.
You're like, this is dumb. And then like the light bulb, like as you're telling me, like the light bulb goes out. I'm like, so they fall on the ground and then they got to pick it up. And as soon as it's in their hand, like, oh, maybe I need one of these.
And dude, we didn't have them in sizes or nothing, or in orders of designs or nothing. We just like spread them out and so if you wanted a Nova extra large, just go around and find it. Just pick up all the Nova shirts until you find the extra large. It's like, at least I keep my stuff in. Well,
yours is in pretty good
somewhat,
order. Yeah.
But the plastic bags, I had to get rid of those.
Yeah, but it was still a cool thing that it was such a cool story where you're like, so let me tell you about some of these cool, which again goes back to, you were talking about being a kid and your dad, the upbringing, how your dad raised you kind of militant or whatever, military, but obviously the entrepreneurial side of all those lessons is why you're now out doing what you're doing, and you're not working for somebody else. You're doing you.
Right. Well, because I seen, like when I was 8 years old, I was working at Lion's Drag Store on the weekend selling those decals. I'd see guys like Don Garlitz, Mickey Thompson, all those guys that were Dad's friends. They were all like successful people doing their own thing on their own dime and own deal, and like making something of themselves, and sleeping in their cars. And I go, I've been doing that the whole time. Like, like we'd go to car shows as far as ways like Oakland or Phoenix. And on the weekend, I'd go with Dad. And on the way, so we'd leave pack up, leave Sunday night. I had to sleep all the way home in the back of the hearse, And then when we got home, I'd have to like get out of the hearse and go to school in the morning. And Dad would sleep all day. And I thought, I got gypped. Dad gets a day off and I had to sleep. And I have to go to school too. What kind of sadness is that?
How many shows do you think you hit in a year? Because you're out and about all the time.
That's a good question.
You don't know?
No, because I wasn't even going to go to Garlic. I was just doing some shows in Missouri, but then my buddy and Scray told me, come on down. Garlic's having a show, and I go, man, I haven't seen Garlic in a while. He's getting old, and as soon as I see him, it was like old home week hugs. Hey, Don, what's up, man? Last time I saw you was in Albuquerque with Pat or something, And it's just like he's really still sharp. And to me, guys like that, him, Robert Williams, Ed Newton, I will always look up to guys like that. Stanley Mouse, because those were the guys that were, up there before, when I was a kid.
Right.
A lot of them are dead now. Pete Chapuris, Mickey Hops, all those guys, Gary Choppett, some of the greats. But, this is what's carrying it on right here. Bro. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. As you're talking about those guys,
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself the same thing as I, look at the things that you do. The inspiration of the fact that you're out. We talked about that when we came back from the first time. I mean, I met you on the TV show, but I really didn't get to talk to you.
Right.
So when we went to Autorama for the first time and got to actually sit and talk to you and then listen to stories, I thought to myself, man, this he's doing exactly what I dreamed to do, which is to be entrepreneurial, and again, this is my most favorite thing about you, and I hope
Right.
I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, but
Right.
is that not only are you an entrepreneurial guy and you're out there, but you're super friendly to your fans.
Yeah.
You give everybody time. You're not like, oh, look at me, I'm a big deal.
Right, yeah.
We were just talking about, you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's some days I take off the top hat and I throw in a ball cap and I try to hide. And then yet still they find me. Because again, and whether you maybe like it or not, I see you as you're carrying on a legacy like your dad, the way your dad did it back in the day before all all the changes of things or whatever. But to go back to the essence of what made your dad, I think you're the true representation of really carrying that on. You know,
can I take 2 minutes?
Yeah. Oh, he's got to go to the yeah. We made sure Little Daddy Roth had a ton of iced tea before it. Here, hold this.
Well, we will catch up on some comments here then.
Yeah, make sure you catch up on. See, this is what we do to our guests. Who make it. He's probably the whole time been like, I really got. Can you stop talking to me? I gotta pee. Yeah, rate some. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. This is how amazing is this? So, Little Daddy Roth in the house. It's so crazy.
Excited. When
although this is the time to talk shit about him. Okay,
no, I would never do that. No, because he's amazing. A super high energy. Is somebody in there? Is somebody in there, or did you go? No. Oh, he is quick.
That's what happens when you learn on the road.
He is quick.
Boom,
he said,
bang.
Did he say 2 minutes or 2 seconds? Because that was quick.
That was a road.
What was I saying? Oh, when I had reached out to you and said, hey, would you want to do the pot? When you said yes, I told him. He's like, no. I'm like, yeah, he's gonna come. So excited to have you here. So we've got Thomas Estrada. Hey little daddy, just had a phone call with Alice Cooper. He's a huge Rat Fink fan.
Right.
Alice Cooper.
Is that crazy?
That is crazy.
I got a little story for you real quick.
Tell us.
Okay. When I got out of the Army, I was working for Dan Woods. When Dan Woods was building the ice truck and milk truck, then he came over and built the chassis for the Druid Princess before we went to Vietnam. So when I got out of the Army, he goes, you got a job. As soon as you get out, you're working for me at Dan Woods Custom Contemporary Carriage Design. So I went over there, and then I was 20 years old. That's when I met Jeff Beck, and I realized what a car guy he was. And I always looked up to, like, man, Jeff Beck is a big guitar hero and rock star and stuff. And the first time I ever went over to his house, I go, wow, he has all the models. He built the Beatnik Bandit, the Outlaw. He's got them all, the Big T, the big V8 engine, all that. I go, he was really a car guy. And he told me something that has always stuck with me, and that was this. I'd go, Jeff, something about, because he had his guitars everywhere, but we'd hang out in his garage and play with the cars and shit. And I go, Jeff, how about this Ingwe Malmsteen guy or this guy? Right? And he goes, you know what, Dennis? He goes, I was lucky. When I was a kid, the Yardbirds hired me. And he goes, I just kept running with the ball after I got into the Yardbirds. Right. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like me too, like, hey, everyone's got some tough times in their life when they're a kid or even when they're adult or whatever. But the one thing Dad always taught me is like, how to build cars and do artwork and stuff like that. And so I just kept with that. And that kind of keeps me, feeling like, hey, I was just lucky to be born in, 1955.
Yeah,
and you know what? Big Daddy was born in 32 and I was born in 55. Big Daddy, I used to always tell him, Big Daddy, you were born the year of the best Ford ever. Yep. And I was born the most iconic year of Chevy,
For sure.
And before he was Mormon, just when I was a kid, it was like, you stupid little kid. Yeah. After he got religion and said, God wanted it that way. Like, 32 and for like, well, that sounds all right.
Either way, it works for me.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Crazy times.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just thought this was cute. Wiley Vincent said, Ian and Jamie, thank you for telling me about Johnny Jalopy and Eddie B's page.
Yeah.
Jim McMillan said, I live in Utah and have only one wife and non-LDS. And he's laughing.
Right.
Gary Miller said, good evening, y'all. Wanted to say hey from Nashville. I totally enjoy your show when I'm not rehearsing or playing. LOL. Anyway, the band is getting dates lined up and we might be coming your way for a couple shows. Yeah. Love the last drawing you did. Your artwork is off the charts, and we will get back to drawing here soon. But we could not pass up an opportunity to chat with this guy. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll be drawing. That was pretty cool that you came and you're like, "All right, so what are we drawing?" I'm like, well, we're not gonna draw anything tonight.
We're just gonna talk.
That's right. We got to talk about stuff. But man, what are we at as far as time there, Beth?
we are at 55 minutes.
Okay, so we're right on where we need to be. Cool. All right. Well, again, is there anything you want folks to know about Little Daddy Roth as far as like where they can get it? I mean, obviously, most people probably already know, but all the promotional stuff and where you're going to be next, maybe that they can come see you.
Well, we even have a spot like on our website where you can see where I'm going to be next, but they don't put it in there too much. Vince, he just had a baby and stuff, so he answers the phone, but he's like trying to edit videos and do all kinds of stuff
as much as he can get done, right?
Yeah, like I said, I don't like to go to California too much because it's like the gas prices are way high.
Yeah, and
to
traffic
park anywhere.
I could tell you.
Yeah, let me Roth metalflake.com. And then, but the phone number is good as any 415.
And how awesome is that? A website or a company that still you can call them and someone's going to answer the phone.
Yeah,
that's odd.
Yeah,
it's not a robot.
Yeah, no. And the other thing I was going to tell you about the Metal Flake too, when I was a kid, that we didn't have any good clear from Metal Flake. There was only lacquer there and maybe some, nothing thick enough to really put on flakes. So we used laminating resin that was in the drums that we built the cars out of. The actual,
no kidding.
Yeah, so in a Binks number 7 siphon gun, Dad would just put fill that with that, thin it out a little bit with acetone, throw some MEK in there, and he would just wet the whole car down or bike, like the Wishbone and California Cruiser we painted like this. And then so he'd take a shoebox and put holes in the bottom and put the Metal Flake in there, and that's when Metal Flake was real metal,
right?
You know what I mean? So then he'd shake it around the bike. Me and my brothers would tilt the California Cruiser body so he could get it on both sides. And then he kind of patted it down with his hands. So you could kind of see it was, some mountains. It looked like a political map, you know what I mean? But then he ran a couple of big more squirts of laminating resin over it. It must have been that thick, easy. So the next morning, and I'm about 11 then, we come to the shop the next day, we're cutting drips off of it where the clear just come down. And the old man takes 80 on a block and starts color sanding it. I didn't even know what he was doing, you know what I mean?
But you're going to destroy it.
Yeah, it's cutting and I'm just a little kid and I just go, oh my God, go get me another gun full of laminating resin, right? I'll go in there, boom, get it. A piss coat of laminating resin fills 80 grit, right?
Right.
So now the clear's about this up high off the political map of Dad's handprints in the California Cruiser. And then he letters California Cruiser and puts a drop shadow on. I thought you could have left the drop shadow off because the drop shadow is going down through that clear onto the flake, that's all lumpy. And the guy that has it up in Colorado now, he goes, man, I try to get the paint jobs off that thing. He goes, I got down to that first paint job I couldn't get off. I go, dude, it's gel coat. You know what I mean? You have to grind it off.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to grind it off. That probably seals the whole thing together. But that was the clears for the original. And then, Watson would start doing them. Probably they had some clears. But back in the 60s, there was no clear for flake. And that's how the first, flake was done, how I saw it done. Real metal.
See, and flakes. I remember being a kid, and the first time I saw a Metal Flake car where it was that big, chunky.
Yeah.
And maybe it might not even have been a car. It might have been one of the big boats.
Yeah.
Where they just had this sick, crazy paint job on it, but the flake was just ginormous.
Yeah, see, in a
the
mold,
size of like this computer screen that felt like they were that big.
Right.
And just the sun just beating off a bam and just color everywhere. You're like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Was your bike metal flaked?
I wish we had, it was, metal flake, but it was like these little teeny
spectrum tape,
little bit of speckle in it. But but thinking back of those big boat, or the doom buggies were a big thing that had.
See, anything you pull out of a mold, you're pulling out reverse. So like you hit it with clear, and then you can throw the sequins off your grandma's dress in there, and then hit it with some backup color, and lay up the body and just pull out the biggest flakes you ever saw.
So cool.
But the gun, to make a gun to shoot flakes that big we have them, but it's easier to do it out of a mold, because then you already have a finish, and you can just put such giant flakes in there. But we sell a lot of flake to a guy who makes rides for kids.
Yeah.
And like places like Marine Tech up in, they build boats and stuff.
I mean, that makes sense, because when you go to like the fairgrounds and the fair, all those
little rockets and motorcycles and boats,
all nice big chunky cool flake, and that's where you go, man, that's the coolest. I want that on the hood, or I want that on the roof.
Right.
It's just so cool. Yeah.
When Tom Pruitt painted the panel for us, he did it with 2 different sizes flake. Instead of using the giant monster flake, he used Lil Flake and standard size. So backup color and 2 different size flakes of the small flake really makes a difference. There's a lot of tricks to painting flake.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and I know this isn't the same, but when my nail girl does my nails with the flake, you can see the flake.
Yeah.
She will mix the colors. She'll do it the same way. She's like, let me put a little bit of a finer flake in here with the big, so that way you have a little bit of variation, and it'll make them shine even more.
Right.
So silly little thing, but I thought
we'll put prismatic in the base coat. We'll put prismatics in the smaller flake, and we'll put prismatics in the larger flake. And you'll swear from a mile away, this thing that's coming at you is this glowing flake. And then if you get real close to it in the shade, you can say, hey, this truck is not totally flake. I can see, the base color underneath there, but it's just the way it stands out, in those 2 different sizes.
It's just, and again, this is something that, Ian and I have had many long conversations about, how just everything looks so good with metal flake on it.
It does.
It just it really, if you want your car to stand out and you want to look different, even though there's a lot of cars that do metal flake, it's just still one of those things where you really go, well, that guy really went for it, because
back in the 60s, metal flake covered a lot of unhappiness. That's what
a lot of bad welding is what you're saying. Well, you're about ready to see some after we get done. I'll show you some really bad welding. We'll do a whole series of bad welding. Johnny learns how to weld. Trip out to the garage, you can see the Kona 5 in progress. Just don't make fun of me too much, Dennis. But we are so appreciative of your time, and you come, and please, I hope this is not the last time you come hang out with us. And the next time you're back in Florida, if you get an opportunity to come hang out,
we'll be doing shows, dude. Oh, sorry about that. Like, I'm knocking stuff around here.
Yes, we will definitely.
Where's the candy from the green room?
We'll definitely have to
get that guy.
We will definitely be meeting up again in Autorama. Can't wait to do that. We'll be back at Frankenmuth. But yeah, I would be loving. Like, I wanted to go to the Show Me art show that you were at with Dennis, the Menace, and I was hoping to make it to that.
Dennis
show.
and Chucky and Hicks, I really want Dart Doherty, and
it looked like it was an amazing time. And I was like, man, I should have been there. That guy's a great guy too.
Yeah.
So, but we're so appreciative that you took some time to come have some dinner with us and hang out at the house. And I just can't thank you enough for coming by, and it means a lot to me that you did.
No problem, baby.
And there are quite a few comments, which I'm sure we can go through later, and I'm sure you'll be looking back too. So if you see any questions there and you want to answer them, feel free. But we appreciate all of you guys stopping in and hanging out with us tonight, and we just appreciate your viewership and all the participation. And I'm sorry I didn't get to all the comments, but we will. I know Johnny goes through them, and he'll be responding to everybody as well. So we love you guys. Thank you again.
Yeah. Hey, so another Monday night in the books. Johnny Jalopy, Itty B, and of course our special guest, the one, the only Little Daddy Roth in the house. Make sure you head over to rothmetalflake.com and grab some amazing stuff. He's got He's got rattle can flake. He's got all kinds of cool. Don't forget to go to the YouTube channel as well. Roth Metal Academy, I believe. Is that still going on? There's
Roth
still,
Metal Academy.
is that what
no,
it's called?
No, it's Roth Academy.
Roth Academy.
But
Sorry.
that would be cool though. Roth
Sorry,
Metal
I was just trying to rename it. Trying to get a little help in there. Anyways, but it's amazing. I've gone through and gone.
I got that one hooked up there on Roth Academy where me and Dad went up and filmed Dutch at Brucker's Ranch.
Okay,
where I was a cameraman and Dad interviews
Nice.
Dutch. It's linked up on there.
So there's some cool videos to watch on that on the YouTube channel as well. So definitely go hit it up. And of course, if you're out and about, I'm sure you will see him at a show near you. Don't hesitate to come by, grab some merch. And if you want the cool stuff, I'll tell you, it's done the way it was done, the old school way. Amazing product. I love my two most favorite hats now are the ones that's sitting out there and the ones I got.
Hey, are you guys coming to the Redneck Rumble this spring when Ian and Jamie come out?
We hopefully.
Okay. You know what?
We'll see what happens.
And they go, where are you going to be next? They don't even know where they're going to be.
I don't even know.
Yeah, I think you're going.
I know where tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be at a breakfast near you and getting
Waffle
an
House.
getting an omelet. All right. Well, another Monday night in the books. We sure appreciate you hanging out. Hey, and if you get an opportunity, we sure appreciate if you can stop by challengelive.com, grab a hat or a sticker, maybe a t-shirt, maybe some art. We'd love to see you there. And again, you folks on the YouTube, thanks for watching. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe. And as always, right, Eddie B, what do they need to do?
Stay sketchy.
All right, stay sketchy. We'll see you guys next Monday. Take it easy. Peace.